Hey there, welcome to Utility Sports. Today's video, we're going to be going over the 2020 NBA Draft, and this is our collective big board. Later on in the channel, we will be having individual big boards, but this is kind of our collective one. So we did the best we could to average it out and put the guys where they need to be. Starting off at 25, Sheldon's going to intro us to Isaiah Joe.
Yeah, Isaiah Joe, out of Arkansas, obviously best known as a really good shooter. Has a strong right to left step back at this point. That's kind of his signature move that he's kind of got down pat for himself. He's got a lot of shooting potential. He's going to function off ball well. The reason we have him down here at 25 is he doesn't have a lot of potential as a real scorer outside of behind the arc. He's got good range. He's going to be able to shoot off of screens. Moves well without the ball. And is going to be able, like I said, to create his own shot a little bit. But he kind of really lacks a lot of skills in terms of, attacking the actual rim. Would definitely prefer to take deeper shots rather than getting to the rim. Doesn't really draw contact too consistently. And defensively, leaves a little bit to be desired. So, he's kind of just more of a shooting prospect at this point. Has to really round out his game yet. That's why we have him down here at 25. Moving on to 24, we have Leandro Bolmaro out of Argentina. Spent some time playing for Barcelona in Spain. Austin, take us through Bolmaro and why we have him here at 24.
Yeah, so Bolmaro is basically a 6'7" point guard. He definitely lacks the shooting ability you'd like to see at the European level. However, he does have the European vibes and flair to him. He's a crafty finisher. He's a pretty good passer and pretty good ball handler. So that part's going to translate well to the NBA level. Not stellar defensively. He's not going to be a shooter, not catch and shoot. He's not going to be able to create his own shot. And, he's not going to be super great at getting to the rim, but he is crafty around the rim, doesn't absorb contact well. So that's why Bolmaro is down here. But he does have some room to grow. It's going to be interesting to see where he lands because on a good organization, he could be a very, very good player.
Moving into 23, we have Tyrese Bey out of the University of Colorado. Was all conference defensively. He also won Defensive Player of the Year in his conference in Colorado. And defensively, that's really kind of where you start with this guy. He's got a lot of high upside on that end of the floor. Shows really good rim protecting potential. As a weak side rim protector, averaged over a block a game in both his sophomore and junior seasons. For Colorado. And also, he's going to be able to move out on the perimeter pretty well. He's got pretty quick feet laterally. He's going to be able to keep up with some twos in the NBA. Probably will struggle with ones early on in his career. But twos through fours, he could probably be a competitive matchup on the defensive end. He's going to be a disruptor. He's going to play in the passing lanes. And I think he's got really high defensive upside. I think he's also a smart defender. He finds himself in the right spots consistently. Rotates well, rotates early. And kind of keeps his head on the swivel, is very aware of what's going on around him and making plays that you need to do to ultimately impact the game on the defensive end. And he's also a really good rebounder. He's got a nose for the ball. Not the biggest, I believe he's 6'7", but he's got a heart, and he uses that to go find the ball. Good athleticism, good motor. Offensively, a lot of room to grow for sure. He's kind of leaves a lot to be desired. That's why we have him down here at 23. But defensively, he's going to be able to come in and give some impactful minutes early on in his career coming out of Colorado. Moving on to 22 here, we have Josh Green, the Arizona Wildcat. Austin, give us some info on Josh Green here and kind of why we have him here at 22.
Yeah, Josh Green's an interesting prospect. He's going to probably be a 2 at the next level. He's a guy that can get his own shot off. I think he'll be able to function pretty well in the catch and shoot. He's pretty creative in terms of getting his shot, getting to his spots. He's got a pretty athletic build himself. He can fly, he can soar through the air. I'm going to be interested to see what his vertical is. I don't know if that's out already or if you have that information, but he's definitely a prospect that has some of the raw tools you would like to mold into a nice wing at the next level.
Yeah, he's got good defensive upside, like you're saying. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Josh Hart, which is an NBA rotational wing at the very worst. So I think that he's got pretty good potential. That's why he finds himself here at 22. Moving on to 21, Cole Anthony, a guy who really opened eyes early on in the season for the UNC Tar Heels. Obviously, the rest of the season did not quite go as well as planned for them. They had a down year comparatively to some of the program's prestigious seasons. And Cole Anthony's struggles were kind of part of that. But looking at him, he's still got the skill set you need to really create shots at the NBA level. We think that he could be a guy that comes in, really fills in as a six-man role, possibly very well later into his career. He can handle the rock in and out of the pick and roll, can get to his spots, rise up and hit shots with a hand in his face, elevates, and he's a tough shot maker and a guy who's willing to take tough shots. And sometimes that's something you need for a team trying to really build up its bench depth early. We kind of question his ability to really play the point guard position as a starter in the NBA because he's kind of one-dimensional when he's looking to score, and he doesn't really, fit the bill when it comes to playmaking. But these are a lot of things he could improve in, and he's got the skill set needed to be a scorer at the next level. And I think that's a really important thing when you're grabbing a guy outside of the lottery, where Cole Anthony will likely go. Moving into 20, Sadiq Bey out of Villanova. Austin, give us some of your insight here on Bey.
Yeah, so for Sadiq Bey, he's not a guy that's going to be able to handle the rock and really create his own shot. Really what I see for him in his career trajectory is he's going to be a 3-and-D wing. He's got pretty good length, good size at 6'8", and he shoots really well from beyond the arc, and he's over 40% this year at Villanova. This is definitely a guy that it's kind of got Robert Covington vibes, maybe not as much defensive prowess as Covington and versatility defensively, but he does have some of those physical tools that you're really looking for in a wing, and his game translates really well to what people are kind of looking at outside of the lottery. You're trying to find specialists, and honestly, having a 3-and-D wing at 20, if he's there, I think he'll probably go a little higher than that. But I think a team would be very, very lucky to get Sadiq Bey outside of the lottery.
Yeah, definitely the size and shooting ability are two things to really watch. And like you had said there, I think he probably does go before 20, but I think we both have some questions about what his upside really is at the NBA level. We kind of see him more as just a guy who's going to come in and fill a role early. Before we move on here, I just want to tell our viewers to like and subscribe, especially if you are new. We've really started to hit the draft hard here, both for the NBA and the NFL mock draft that we posted on Mondays. That will be a recurring thing. So if you guys like the content here, please like and subscribe. We really appreciate it, all the support. Let us know in the comments down below what you like that we do and what you think we could do better even, because we're open to a lot of suggestions. We're really trying to improve the channel for you guys. Moving on to number 19 here now, we have Jahmias Ramsey out of Texas Tech. A creative guard, able to get a shot off, good shooter from deep. He's, I believe, 6'4", 6'5", so he's got a pretty good frame to him, moves well off the ball, keeps his feet ready, doesn't need to hop into shots, can shoot right off the catch, but also does have the skill to hop into shots when need be. And I think he's got some potential to really be able to work in the pick and roll game as well as an on-ball guard. He's kind of got combo guard feels to him, a little bit like Cole Anthony, but with better range and a little bit better efficiency numbers in his seasons at Texas Tech. So I think Ramsey kind of finds himself here at 19 as a player who's going to come in and also fit a role early in his career. I think there's a little bit of potential for him to kind of become a starting guard, but early on in his career, I think he'll be best suited coming off the bench. Moving into 18 here, we got Killian Hayes out of Germany. Austin, bring us through Hayes and what you kind of see on him.
So Killian Hayes is a guy all about your banking on upside. He's got a great frame for being a point guard. He's an okay playmaker, and he's not going to shoot very well from beyond the arc at the NBA level. We don't believe that that's going to translate, considering how he did overseas. This is a guy that really we're not very high on. A lot of people see him potentially being the 4th overall pick, anywhere from 4 to like 12. We don't see him the same way. This is definitely a guy you're going to hope to develop in all phases of the game. Hopefully he would have some defensive upside with his size and his length at the point guard position. But, there's not a lot of things I really love, on film. There's nothing that really stuck out to me. Like, this is an elite trait for a player. I don't think he possesses any of those. Sheldon, what do you think about Hayes?
Yeah, Hayes is kind of an interesting player because he's shown some signs of being a shot creator. And able to create space out on the perimeter. But like you mentioned, his shooting just hasn't really come around as much as I think scouts would love to see. If it had, maybe he'd be the 1st overall pick in the draft, honestly. But with some of his, inconsistencies from behind the arc, it doesn't really do you much good if you're creating a lot of space and not hitting the shot. So I think that's kind of where we see him. Obviously, he's, pretty talented passer. I think he sees the floor pretty well, but I think defensively he's kind of out of position quite often, doesn't really move his feet as consistently as you'd want a guard to do, especially if you're going to be asking him to guard other point guards. And I think some of those athletic limitations that he has kind of hinders what his size and length kind of give him, because he's not going to be able to really keep up foot speed with some of the faster guards in the league. And he's not athletic enough to keep up with a lot of wings. So I think he'll kind of, I don't know, be ushered out, but the offensive potential is there if everything comes together for him and he improves as a shooter. Moving into 17, we have the Kentucky guard Tyrese Maxiell, a little bit of a combo guard here again too. I think that he kind of had a down year at Kentucky, didn't really perform as well as he could have, but at the same time, he's got potential to function as kind of a 3-level scorer to some degree, especially in the mid-range game. That's kind of where his strength lies at this point. He also can get to the rim pretty consistently. Needs to improve as a 3-point shooter. That'll be kind of where a lot of his success is predicated off of. But we kind of see him as a Caris LeVert, like a younger Caris LeVert version, where he's going to be able to come in and impact the game with the ball in his hands, but can also live with the ball out of his hands occasionally. We'll kind of see that more from LeVert this year with the Nets once Kyrie and KD are both fully healthy. Again, assuming LeVert doesn't get traded. But I think he'll be an interesting player to watch. And I think anytime you're drafting a Kentucky player outside the top 10, you're probably going to get a pretty good asset here. You looked at Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero in recent years, obviously key pieces of the Miami Heat success. And I think Maxi's kind of got some of those qualities to him too moving forward. Jumping into Jaden McDaniels here at 16. Austin, this is one of your favorite players, I believe, in the class from a possible tool standpoint. Walk us through here what you like about McDaniels and what you see in him.
So McDaniels is definitely a toolsy player. He stands 6'10" and he's got, I think it's a 7'1" wingspan. This is definitely a guy that you can kind of mold. He has a little bit of the Michael Porter Jr. vibes to him. He does have some potential upside, and I think he will definitely be better on the defensive end than Michael Porter Jr. A lot of that comes with consistency and effort. For him, we did not see that consistency, especially on the offensive end through the entire year. And this guy could be a true 3-level scorer from the mid-range. He can get to the rim, finish at the rim, and he could shoot the 3 ball. Obviously, his percentages weren't great from 3, but he has a nice looking shot. And that's honestly, when you get outside the lottery, you look for specialists and you look for toolsy players that you can look to develop. This is the perfect case for that. Having a guy that's 6'10" that can handle the rock, he can score, and he does have that potential defensive upside. You get him in the right system, this guy could transcend into a very, very good player. Obviously had some issues at Washington with his coach. Got benched for part of the year. So a lot of the pre-draft stuff is going to indicate, when teams are speaking to his coach, and they're not going to give him the best reviews. And I kind of question his work ethic a little bit, but I think Jaden McDaniels from a toolsy standpoint is up there in the class.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, Austin, it's pretty unlikely that he go in the lottery based off his coach and everything. But I think in recent mocks, we've mocked him to at 16 to Portland once or twice, and a few other places too. Do you like that fit in Portland? And do you think McDaniels is, I don't know, are you sold on him, or are you kind of still up in the air a little bit?
I think it depends on where he ends up. I think if he ends up on a team like, say, the Kings, I think it's over for him. I think he's just going to be a disaster. Sorry for all you Kings fans, but the Kings aren't the only team. It's just you have to have good structural foundation for this kid to really thrive. Look at Michael Porter Jr. I think the same thing could be said if he doesn't go to Denver, if he goes to, say, Charlotte or Sacramento, not to throw your franchises under the bus, but I just think you have to have some good structure to your organization. I think a team like Portland definitely could use him. They need a wing. He's a guy that can fill up those mellow minutes, and give him a couple years, and this guy could be a very, very good player.
Yeah, you give him that secondary or tertiary scoring option now behind McCollum and Dame. Moving into 15, Patrick Williams, a player that many are very high on. Some even say that he has one of the top potentials in the class. We here at Utility Sports are a little bit less high on Patrick Williams. I had him right around this range as well. And I think, Williams, he's got defensive upside for sure. He moves his feet fairly well for a player with his frame and strength. He's going to be able to switch from the 2 to 4 positions easily in the NBA defensively. But offensively, I got a lot of questions about really his functionality. Some people have listed him as a shooting guard or a small forward. I see him pretty much strictly as a power forward. He's a 2-foot jumper when he has the ball in his hands, which means he's basically less fluid attacking the rim. He kind of needs to set his feet and then go rather than jumping off of one. which, obviously that doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is with the speed of the NBA. I think that there's going to be a lot less scoring options for him as a cutter when he has to jump off too. I think I've got some questions about his shooting. Potentially, he's going to be able to spot up probably in the corner early on in his career, but I don't think that he'll really function as a guy that is, a consistent offensive weapon. And I think he's going to be more of an opportunistic scorer off of open looks or easy backdoor cuts. And I think that's why we kind of find Patrick Williams here down at 15. Austin, I kind of want to open this one up to you. What parts of Williams' game do you like and dislike, and kind of where do you see him?
Yeah, for Williams, I definitely think that the shot blocking is going to be a great tool. The thing I'm worried about, he's kind of that tweener. You're a little worried, where is he going to fit? Obviously, there's been questions about moving him from the 2 to the 3, and he's listed at all different kinds of positions. No matter where you look, he's going to be a 4. He could be a small ball 5, but you really like the shot blocking. You love his ability to honestly catch lobs. He's going to be a rim runner. This guy's going to be a high energy guy. You saw that at Florida State. If you watch any of their games, this guy was going for every rebound. And just having those hustle guys are important. But I think in terms of his overall skill set, it's not where you'd like it to be for a lottery pick.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of, one of those things that you have to be a little concerned about. We've heard some rumors about Detroit at 7. And I think that would be kind of a nightmare if that happens. I don't think he fits well with Griffin or Demboya or even Kennard, really, for that matter. I think that, we kind of saw them go down the same route with Stanley Johnson a few years ago, and I kind of see Patrick Williams, I think Williams is going to be better than Stanley Johnson, but not by a whole lot. And I kind of think that that'll be pretty interesting if Detroit does go that way. Now 14, another guy you are very high on. I think a lot of people who've seen him have been pretty high on him as well. Alexei Pokusevski, we got him here at 14 overall in our big board. Why do we have Pokusevski so high?
So a lot of the reason why he's here is his potential is through the roof. He kind of gives you a little bit of vibes of Jokic. Obviously, he's a lot skinnier than Jokic is. Jokic has definitely he's a little more bulky, not in terms of actual strength, but just fat. He was able to slim down. However, this is the complete opposite. I think a better comparison in terms of frame would be Kristaps. He's not as big as Kristaps. He's either 7 foot or 7'1". I'm not exactly sure what his official height will be listed as, but he's a guy that has skill. He can actually handle the ball surprisingly well, and he's a creative passer. He does not shoot the 3 ball particularly well, but you would like to see him shoot a little more, get some more volume, see him in rhythm. But this guy definitely has the skills to kind of match up like play style with Jokic. Will he be Jokic? That's yet to be seen. But if you can get 3/4 of Jokic's skill in this guy, he's definitely worthy of a lottery selection, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. You're looking at a 7-footer with potential guard skills at the NBA level. Obviously, like you had said, he's going to be a couple years away from really being ready to come in and contribute. He's too thin right now. He's going to struggle with most NBA bigs. But he's got good athleticism to him, good mobility. He can possibly stretch out the floor a little bit as a big. You could play him probably at the 4 or the 5 a few years into his career once he bulks up a little bit. And the passing potential is insane. Looking at him, he's on pace with Domantas Sabonis and Nikola Jokic and Jusuf Nurkic as some of the best NBA passing big men. And I think that alone's an elite trait of his. And I think that's, worth taking a gamble on if you're a team with a pretty good, kind of set stability moving forward. Now at 13, Jay Scrubb. This is a personal favorite of mine. Austin, I think you're pretty high on him too. Obviously, that's why we have him at 13 here. Jay Scrubb will be a second-round selection. There's no way he goes in the first round. He's coming out of Division II, John A. Logan. The reason he went to John A. Logan, for those of you who are saying why would they take a Division II player, was because of academic reasons from his high school. He failed his 9th grade year in high school, wasn't really focused on academics. And then that ruled him ineligible for Division I scholarships. So that's why he found himself at a D2 school. But at John A. Logan, he's averaging over 20 points a game, really shot well off the bounce. He's got insane athleticism, over a 40-inch vertical. And I think that he's got a lot of the tools you need to really become a strong NBA wing. He's got a 6'5" frame, possibly 6'6", got good wingspan, I believe 6'9" or 6'10". And he's got some of the talent you need to really kind of move in as a shooter, off the catch and also as a self-creator on the bounce. So I think Scrub finds himself here at 13. Austin, you want to walk us through Scrub a little bit more and kind of give us what you see in him?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. If you put on the film, this guy can get to his spots. Obviously, at the Division II level, it's a little easier to do that. Something you would like to see him improve on. However, if we're going to look at a little bit of the negatives, the catch and shoot, he did not shoot a very good percentage on the catch and shoot. You just like to see him, take not as tough shots, but I get when he's at his level trying to prove himself. I think once he gets into an organization, he'll kind of settle down and be like, all right, I got to be a little more selective. That could be said by a couple of these prospects in the class, like Anthony Edwards. But this guy's athleticism is off the charts, and honestly, he has the scoring ability to be one of the top players in this class. I think solely you take him based off of that. He can shoot the three ball. I believe in him for that, but one of his great traits is getting to the rim and finishing around the rim as well. So having Jay Scrub at 13 might sound nuts to a lot of people that are watching, but please, we advise you to throw on the tape, take a look at him, because this guy could be special.
Yeah, the athleticism's off the charts, like you mentioned. Moving into 12, we have Aaron Nesmith, played 14 games for Vanderbilt this year as a sophomore under Jerry Stackhouse, and kind of really emerged as a scoring threat, and especially as a shooter, shot over 52% from three. Austin, walk us through Nesmith and kind of what you see in him.
In the limited sample size we saw of Nesmith, obviously he's a great shooter, judging by the percentages that you just heard there. This guy can shoot lights out. He's a guy that could probably be a tertiary ball handler. This guy is honestly what you're looking for at the NBA level. Having a guy that can shoot at a lights out clip is very, very important. But he's not just a shooter. That's the thing that we need to remember. There are some players that can shoot a high percentage, but let's take a look at, if you throw on the film, what kind of threes he's hitting. He can function off ball. He can function on ball. He can run around screens, catch and shoot. He can create a three for his own. So I think that's really important when looking at a shooter, not just by the percentage, but, how is he getting his shots off? Can he create for himself? And he honestly can do all of that. Scoring is definitely the reason you'd be taking him, especially his shooting. That's one of his elite traits.
Yeah, looking at him, he's going to fit in really well with teams like the Boston Celtics, Dallas Mavericks, New Orleans Pelicans, even some of those teams between 10 and 18 or so should be looking Nesmith, and that's why we have him here at 12. Like you had kind of mentioned, he can get his own shot off a hang dribble, manipulate the pick and roll a little bit as a shooter scoring option. And also he's got a very high release point with a pretty good NBA ready frame. So I think he's going to be able to come in and give teams quality minutes right away out of the gate coming from Vanderbilt. Now at 11, we got Kira Lewis Jr. here, a very athletic, quick point guard from Alabama. I believe he's listed at 6'3", about 190 pounds. And this guy's got shades of Colin Sexton to him. He's also got shades of John Wall to him a little bit in terms of end-to-end speed. The guy's a burner in the open court, and I think transition play is going to be really important for Kira Lewis early in his career. He's got some of the talents you need to be a dynamic scorer at the NBA level. I think he could come in and probably average 14, 15 points a game pretty early in his career based off his ability to split doubles with his athleticism. He's got a pretty good handle. Functions as a quality shooter off the catch. A little bit of Darren Collison to him. He needs to have some space. Probably not going to be a contested shooter. But at the same time, that's a valuable player, and around pick 11 in terms of where we think his value kind of is. That's a good selection at this point. Austin, I know you like Kira Lewis quite a bit. What do you think on him?
Yeah, I think one of his big things is his speed altogether really opens up a lot for him. He's very dangerous off the dribble in terms of taking guys to the rack. He can finish around the rim, and like you said, he can function as a catch and shoot guy if needed. But he does have a lot of Colin Sexton to him. Just that elite trait of speed. He's an okay playmaker, but honestly, just his scoring ability is going to be pretty dangerous at the next level. Like you said, early on in his career, he's going to be able to average 15 points per game or so, which not a lot of guys in this class are going to be able to just straight up do that. Would like to see him improve a little bit on the playmaking side of it, but Kira Lewis Jr. Is a great prospect.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to kind of see where he lands. He got a little bit of De'Aaron Fox to him. I don't think he'll quite reach that ceiling either. I think Phoenix could be a really great fit next to Devin Booker in that backcourt, giving them more of a north-south scorer, as Devin Booker is kind of an east-west scorer at this point. And I think that there's a lot of places that he could go in and succeed. I think New Orleans would be a team to watch too around him with Lonzo Ball's contract negotiations, with Rich Paul being his agent. Moving into 10, Tyrese Terry, another guard here out of Stanford. Really, really great shooter. Austin, kind of walk us through what we saw from Terry at Stanford, and kind of where do you think his potential lies in his functionality in an NBA offense?
Yeah, so for Tyrese Terry, it's all about being the late riser in this class. He went from basically an unknown player to a guy that is, very, very much considered in the lottery at this point. He's a guy that could be a secondary playmaker on a team. He's able to shoot the lights out of the ball. He shot, I think it was 42% or so at Stanford. This is a guy that also can, he's a pretty creative finisher. Would like to see him finish with contact a little more. He's got floaters, runners. He's got quite a bit in his bag. And like I said, he is pretty good at handling the ball himself. And possibly I see him improving as a playmaker for others. But this guy's got a lot of the tools that you saw at the collegiate level that definitely translate at the NBA level. This is a guy that you really want to have possibly as your sixth man or low-end starter is kind of where I project him to go. But if you have him as your sixth man, he could very well be the sixth man of the year a couple of years down the line.
Yeah, Terry's got a kind of a unique handle to him, able to really pull up from range off the bounce, good hang dribble. And I think he manipulates the defense pretty well in the pick and roll. I think he's going to be able to split defenders going north and south every once in a while. And I think just his shooting ability with his first step, I think those two things are dangerous enough to make him a quality player in this year's draft. And that's why we have him at 10. Now on to Nneko Kongwu, a big man with good mobility, good athleticism out of USC. He's kind of more where the NBA is moving for NBA big men. He's, I believe, 6'9" or 6'10". Kind of reminds me a little bit of Tristan Thompson in terms of, what his play style is going to look like. He's going to be a little bit more of a face-up guy at the rim rather than a back-to-the-basket center. He's going to be a screen and roll guy, really good athleticism. And like I said, the mobility out on the wing and the defensive pick and roll game, he's going to be able to switch out onto more wings than most NBA centers can. And I think that's kind of where a lot of his strengths are, too. He reminds me a little bit of Montrezl Harrell in terms of what his physical profile looks like, a little bit better of a, natural rim protector. And I think he, rotates well and knows where he has to be defensively. I think he's a very smart defensive player. And I think that there's a lot of value here in Kongwu as a top 10 player in the draft, as we have him here at 9. Austin, walk us through a little bit of Kongwu, kind of what you see on him and why we have him at 9.
Yeah, he's definitely going to translate at the next level to be a shot blocker. Like you had mentioned, this is where the NBA is going. Guys like him that can, protect the rim, switch out into space. You don't necessarily have to be a great scorer, but as long as you have that switchability as a big man and can protect the rim, kind of like we had mentioned earlier, Bam Adebayo provided so much value to that Heat team, and he was a crucial part of making that finals run. I think you're completely right on the idea that this is where the NBA is shifting. We need to have guys that are, a little lighter footed, and that's why I'm not super pumped about guys like, I think Patrick Williams, that's kind of the big separation point between these two, is that Okongwu, because he can switch out and guard guards. I don't see the same thing for Patrick Williams, even though they kind of have the same physical stature, some of the same strengths. I think that's what really separates Okongwu from Patrick Williams.
Yeah, definitely. And especially the other centers that won't be on this board. I mean, players like Vernon Carey and Isaiah Stewart, those players out in space are going to be, dead in the water, basically, against some of the quicker guards in the NBA. And I think Okongwu's got, the length and quickness and mobility that you really need to, not necessarily stop them, but kind of bother them enough to, hurt their efficiency and kind of limit the danger done by guards in the pick and roll game. Moving into pick 8, obviously a player here with great defensive upside, arguably possibly the top defensive player in the class, Isaac Okoro. Austin, bring us through kind of what you see on him, how his functionality will work in the NBA, and also some of his offensive output and limitations.
Yeah, so definitely. I think a big part in considering taking a guy that's defensive-minded first and biggest strengths are defense first is he going to be good enough on the offensive level to justify taking him, right? So taking a look at Okoro, he's not going to be a guy that's going to shoot really well at the next level. Second. So he's not going to be a guy that shoots very well at the next level, but he's a guy that you have to consider that he can play really good defense. He's got great length. He's a guy that is able to switch on multiple positions, 1 through 3 mainly, possibly 1 through 4 depending on the size of the 4. A lot of defensive versatility. He can block shots. He's able to beat guys to spots. He's a smart defender. He's able to fight through screens. He's definitely a guy that you want to guard their best player, right? So he has that much upside. But on the offensive end, he's really, really quick. He can finish at the rim. You can see him finish with both hands. He kind of has some DeMar DeRozan vibes where he'll shoot some mid-rangers as well. That's something you had brought up to me, that you kind of saw that same thing offensively, possibly. He probably won't be as good as DeMar offensively, but he kind of has the same play style offensively that you'd like to see. So I think Okaro is a guy that, you really have to value in terms of, if you're a weaker defensive team, a team like Atlanta could really, really use him.
Yeah, I was actually just going to ask if you had a specific team in mind. I think Atlanta is kind of that team that makes a lot of sense at 6. Obviously, they need some more defensive presence. They brought in Clint Capella to kind of protect the middle a bit. We have yet to see him play there, but I think adding Okaro as a wing defender would make a lot of sense. And I think you kind of nailed it too, looking at Okaro. He shot over 60% inside the arc in his freshman season at Auburn. He was the 33rd ranked prospect in his recruiting class, and his trajectory's been flying upward since then. Really kind of willed Auburn into a competitive team this year. They didn't really have a lot around him, and yet they're a very solid team in the SEC. And I think that Okaro defensively is going to be the best player in this class. I think he's got the mobility needed, as you mentioned, to really, guard out in space. I think he's even a guy that could maybe be a Mr. 94 feet a few years into his career, willing to take guys up and down the court, full court pressure, half court pressure. He's going to be a zone weapon. Too. I think he's going to be a real natural disruptor at the NBA level. I really love his potential on that end of the floor. Moving into the Iowa State Cyclone guard, Tyrese Haliburton. After his sophomore season at Iowa State, he is coming out of the draft. Here, many see him between picks 4 and about 8 or 9 to maybe the Knicks or the Wizards. And I think Haliburton right here at 7 makes a lot of sense. He's got a lot more offensive upside than Isaac Okoro, especially as a shooter. Shot over 40% from 3 both of his seasons at Iowa State. Despite an unconventional shooting form, he's got really good range on his shot. Has some playmaking potential, averaged over 6 assists a game as a sophomore for Iowa State. And I think he's probably the best passer coming out of college basketball in this draft. Obviously, we got players like Deni Avdija and Lamell Ball, who are going to be seen here later, that didn't go to college in the United States. So obviously they don't count for this, but I think Haliburton's got a lot of potential as a combo guard. He kind of reminds me of Gilgeous-Alexander, really good wingspan, good length at 6'6" and a near 7-foot wingspan. So I think he's a player that's going to be able to come in and be really NBA ready. I think he's going to not necessarily be a lead scorer, but I think he's going to be a guy who can, pour in 14, 15 points a night while getting 4 or 5 assists and really, serve some functionality on the ball, off the ball, and defensively, I think he's going to be able to guard 1 through 3 with his length. So I think there's a lot of upside here. Where do you see Haliburton kind of going and fitting in? We've heard some rumors about Golden State at 2, possibly Detroit at 7. There's also rumors Knicks at 8 would really want him and consider moving up for him. Do you see any of those places as a likely landing spot or somewhere else?
Yeah, so I mean, if we look historically, that the Knicks do like to draft point guards. Some people that have watched some of our channel think that the Knicks are great at point guard, which I don't agree with that notion. For Tyrese Haliburton, I think that Detroit makes a lot of sense. Detroit definitely needs a guard, a guy who can handle rock and score. Like you had mentioned, he is the best college playmaker out of this class. Not saying he's the best playmaker, that must be noted here, but he is the best college playmaker that we have in this class. He definitely trajects well with that 6'5" frame, long wingspan, and definitely has the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander vibes to him. But I think that Detroit makes a lot of sense. I think New York makes a lot of sense. Either way, he's gonna make a big impact for them, hopefully.
Moving on to pick 6, now we have arguably the best playmaker in recent years, even Lamell Ball at 6. Obviously, that would be his elite skill. Austin, walk us through Lamell Ball, his year for the Illawarra Hawks, some of his ups and downs, and kind of where you see him projecting into the NBA.
I mean, so a lot of people say, yes, he did play pretty well there. He did not shoot well from 3. I think it was 25% is what he shot from beyond the arc at his time over there playing for the Hawks. How he left, he kind of left the team unexpectedly, kind of left his teammates hanging dry. Really don't love that about him. I kind of question a little bit of his personality, obviously, with LeVar Ball constantly over his shoulder. That makes me wonder where his motives will be at. Is he going to quit on a team? He's quit on several teams, if we're going to be quite honest with ourselves. Obviously, he has the elite trait of playmaking, just like Lonzo did. He's not going to be able to score great in the half court or necessarily create in the half court himself. I mean, you'd hope he'd be able to translate into more of a scorer. And I think he will be able to shoot, but he did not shoot well over there. I think that percentage will actually go up at the NBA level. I don't think he'll shoot 25%, but it's very possible. Something you had mentioned and brought up to me was when he's taking shots from different angles, he tends to change his shooting motion quite drastically. So that's a little bit of a concern for me in terms of just scoring in the half court and being a creator. I don't think he's going to really be a creator for himself, but obviously he'll be an elite creator for others. And, he'll definitely be top 10 in assists, probably even the first year he gets into the league.
Yeah, his feel for the game is something you really can't teach. I think that's really what locks him in as a top 10 prospect for sure in this class. He's going to translate as a starting point guard, and we actually do have a video on him, so we're going to put this up in as a card here for you guys to click on to kind of get a closer look at Lamell Ball, some of his strengths, some of his weaknesses, and areas he could improve before coming into the NBA. But his size at 6'7", good length, and that feel for the game, something you can't teach, and that's why we got him here this high at 6. Now moving into 5, a player with not a long track record of collegiate play. Obviously, only played 3 games for the Memphis Tigers. Obviously, in those 3 games, was very dominant. In about 24 minutes, was averaging 21 points a game or so, I believe, with 10 rebounds and I think 3 blocks. So his per 40 numbers were pretty insane. He's a 7'1" center with 7'6" wingspan, 9'6" standing reach, and he's less mobile defensively than a player like Nneko Kongwu, which is possibly why Kongwu could go above him in this class, even though I find that unlikely. And he's got really great rim protecting potential, obviously, with that standing reach. He kind of reminds me of Rudy Gobert a little bit. He's got that 7'1" length, 7'6" wingspan. He's going to be big around the rim. He's got good mobility north and south, can hit the pick and roll game hard as a screener. And there's also some potential there if he goes to a team like Charlotte or Chicago that's less focused on winning and more focused on building. That he's got some potential where he could maybe step out to the 3-point line, has a little bit of a face-up game as a creator himself in the mid-range area. And I think that there's a lot to work with him. And I feel like 5's a little too low, honestly. And I think if he did play a full season, we'd probably have him higher on our board. I really love the potential with Wiseman here. I think he could be a defensive a stalwart in the lane, and I think offensively he's got upside. And if he lands with a team like Golden State, he probably won't reach that ceiling because they won't be focused on really, okay, let's give you post touches and let's let you work from the 3-point line. He's going to be a screen and roll guy, but I think that really plays to what his strengths are right now anyway. So I think that really there's not a bad situation for Wiseman in the top 5 or 6 picks really. Besides maybe Cleveland, I don't really like the fit there a lot with what they've got. Austin, looking at Wiseman, what do you kind of see? Are you kind of in agreement there? And where would you want him to go if you're just as an NBA fan?
Yeah, so just going off that last prompt there, where would I want him to go just from an NBA fan standpoint? It would be really hard to watch him in Golden State, but if you really want to see him thrive in a system, I think that would be great for him to go to Golden State and be that screen and roll guy right away. I think you're spot on with your analysis of he's not going to really develop his game too much because he's going to fit into the Kevon Looney role, except do it at an elite level, I believe. So I think in terms of just watching him, and if you're a fan of James Wiseman, you want him to land in Golden State, which is where you should want a lot of the top prospects to go if you're a fan of a certain player. Just fitting into that system, a lot of players will work no matter what. But I think you were spot on with the strengths, definitely being that guy that he has a lot of the tools that he's going to be a great rim protector, and he's going to be a guy that should be able to – I think he'll be able to score. I think he'll be able to kind of figure that out, refine his game, refine his skills. I mean, we only saw him 3 games, so he was just trying to get into the groove of being at the college level. He probably really didn't get into his bag entirely for what he's got. He didn't have to. Why? Because he played lower level competition for 2 games. He played Oregon for the 3rd game. He really didn't have to go deep into his bag. He didn't have to face adversity during the year in terms of, all right, they were doing this against me. I got to adjust my game. I got to add something. So I think that there's a lot to work with. And I think you're completely right on the notion that if he had played a full season, this guy would be higher. I really believe that. But since we didn't, it's a little scary. Maybe this is all he is that we saw. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's obviously this year is a little bit weirder too for him. It's been over a calendar year since we've last seen him play. Now in the middle of November by the time the draft rolls around because of obviously the delay in the NBA draft. So at this point, it'll be 12 months since the teams are even seen him play a live game of 5-on-5 basketball in any organized fashion. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing to watch. It is possible that he falls if teams aren't really sold on, not having that real body of work in a year that, a lot of players are kind of comparable and close. Kongwu could go above him. A lot of other players could go above him. But I think a team around 5 or 4 even would be pretty happy getting him with what his physical profile looks like. Now moving on to 4, Devin Vasel, 6'7" guard/wing with high defensive upside. Austin, walk us through Vasel, kind of what you've seen out of Florida State. And they're really kind of becoming that school that develops a lot of defensive products.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Florida State's not known for being a basketball school, but we've obviously seen 2 guys come out of this class in Williams and Vasel. Vasel definitely offers great scoring potential, 3-level scoring potential. He's kind of like Jemias Ramsey, where you can see him scoring at every single level, but I think he could do it at an elite level potentially one day. Like you had mentioned, he's kind of got some Paul George vibes to him. If you want to go back, he's got a handle to him. He's a guy that can shoot over you. But he's a very intriguing prospect, and I don't think people are talking enough about it. If you think about the guys that in the lottery that ended up going on to be, becoming great players, it's kind of those guys that are toolsy players, anywhere from that 10 to like 15 range area. You want to take some chances on wings there. A lot of times they're kind of overlooked for whatever reason it may be. Could be a glaring weakness that you're able to kind of clean up. You have Paul George, you have Kawhi, you have Giannis, obviously, who was selected in that range. But I'm definitely a guy that has the tools. That the one thing we're extremely concerned about is his video that came out when he was shooting over top of his head. We only saw 2 shots in that video. However, it was completely altered from what we saw in film.
Yeah, and that's one of those biggest concerns. He came out of his sophomore year at Florida State shooting over 40% from 3, so there was real no need for him to be tweaking his jump shot. So hopefully that's something that maybe he was just messing around a little bit that day or was trying something different, but kind of hopefully he moves back to where his form was. It was nice, high over the top of his head, a little bit like Kevin Durant-esque type release. Obviously, he won't be Kevin Durant as a scorer, but like you mentioned, he's an athletic monster. He jumps well off of both 1 and 2 feet. Very fluid with the ball in his hands, can rise up going left and going right, something that a lot of guys at this age really can't do. And I think that his potential as a scorer in the NBA is actually really high, and I think that he could be a great 2-way wing player early in his career. Now moving on to 3, Obi Toppin out of Dayton University, one of the most electric players, if not the most electric player in this class, especially from an athletic standpoint. If you guys haven't watched this guy play, you got to go look him up. He's pulling off some Zion Williamson type dunks in his sophomore season at Dayton. He is a little bit older, partially kind of concerned about what his potential could look like, but he is a late bloomer. So, he's still kind of up on that upward trajectory. Hasn't really been great for a while, just kind of emerged recently. And I think that he's got an NBA frame. You can look at him here. He's, 6'9", 225 pounds already. He's going to be able to body up with most NBA wings. He's got a little bit of lack of mobility defensively, but the guy can run the floor hard offensively. His offensive upside is very high. I think he's going to be able to stretch out the floor. I think he's going to function as a pick and roll roller as well as a pick and roll fade option. And that's kind of where the NBA is at offensively a lot right now. Is you get a really good ball handler with a good screener with optionality as a roller or as a float option. And I think Toppin gives you the best of both worlds in that regard with his athletic profile. Where do you see Toppin possibly landing? And do you think that Toppin will be where do you kind of project him, I guess, at the NBA level?
Yeah, so for Obi Toppin, he's definitely a guy that right away he could end up being the best player to start the season. The first 30 games, he could honestly become the top player in this class just initially. I think other players will pass him up throughout the course of the season and then eventually their careers. But he's arguably the best sealer in the entire class. You watch him; he's great with positioning. He knows how to seal guys off and explode towards the rim. He's the best player in transition, you could argue, in the entire class as well. He runs the floor well. And he's extremely dangerous downhill. He's a guy that you do not want to stand in front of if he's going to dunk. So he has a lot of the same tools that Zion has from an athletic standpoint. Obviously, didn't get any national recognition playing at Dayton University. You could project him as possibly a near all-star. I don't know if he's going to ever reach that level, but I think that's kind of where he projects. He's going to be a guy who's probably going to be able to score anywhere from 18 to 20 points per game. But this guy is a phenomenal talent, and you'd be very lucky to land him where I think the Cavs will land him with their current draft selection. I think that's where he's going to end up. Am I crazy about the fit? Not really. Just considering with their current roster construction, what they have, I think it makes sense for them to take him, but I'm just not sure if it's going to work out entirely there, considering they don't have any, elite playmakers to kind of maximize his potential, I guess.
Yeah, on a play style type basis, I kind of compare him a little bit to Amari Stoudemire. And obviously we saw Amari Stoudemire at his best with one of the best playmakers of all time, Steve Nash. And I think Obi Toppin would be kind of hoping to get in a situation like that. I think Golden State would be a really dream situation for him, getting to play with shooters and an open floor, and then really function as that small ball center from time to time. And I think he'll be an interesting player to watch early in his career. And he's going to be showtime for some team. I mean, if the Knicks got him at 8, that would be incredible for their city in terms of selling tickets. I mean, he's going to be a guy that many people are going to love watching at the NBA level. He's going to be a 360 machine. He's going to windmill machine. And he's going to be a lot of fun to watch in transition for an NBA team for sure early on in his career. Moving on to number 2 here, Anthony Edwards out of Georgia. We've seen him as high as 1 at times. We've seen him as low as 4 or 5 at times. Austin, walk us through why we have him here at 2, kind of some of the upsides and the downsides for Edwards.
So for the biggest thing for Anthony Edwards is he's the best physical specimen in this entire class. Given that he has good size as well on top of it. I mean, he's a strong player. He's a guy that, I mean, he kind of gives you a little bit of Donovan Mitchell vibes in terms of an athlete perspective. He can get to the rim. I think he could shoot the 3 ball at the next level, but he's probably more suited for shooting inside the arc and around the rim. Definitely has some good potential upside. I mean, he can literally fly out of the gym, kind of like Obi Toppin as well. But the thing that we had issues with was his consistency, right? Is that why he's not number 1? Probably. I think if he cleaned up his consistency a little bit, he very well could have been the number 1 pick. You go and watch some of the games that Georgia had. He could very well shoot you out of a game in terms of him just feeling pretty good about himself and taking a lot of pull-up threes, unnecessary shots early in the shot clock. You'd like to see him spread the ball around a little more. He's not going to be a playmaker. We had both talked about this Andrew Wiggins comparison, which is very fair. You'd hope that he would project a little bit better than Andrew Wiggins, but honestly, if you land Andrew Wiggins like player and he performs better, you're feeling pretty good about your selection. It's going to be hard to see, where he goes in the draft. A lot of people think there's absolutely zero chance he goes past pick 4. We think there's possibly a pathway for that to happen, but Anthony Edwards athletically is off the charts.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it there too with some of his consistency. And honestly, consistency for his motor as well. We kind of saw him, occasionally take plays off. A little bit of Dennis Smith Jr. to him in that regard from what we saw. And I also think that there's questions for his IQ offensively. You had mentioned his pull-up 3-pointers, something that Donovan Mitchell does currently for the Utah Jazz. Obviously, Mitchell's a very good player. But I think that Edwards, I believe he was shooting around 7 3-pointers a game, which is right around what Klay Thompson was shooting in his time. And Edwards was shooting more around 30% from 3 instead of 40% from 3. So you kind of have to question why he's putting up some of those shots when he's not really been super productive. I think he kind of forced some shots at Georgia just to get himself some more recognition, to increase his scoring output. And not that, he doesn't have the skill to be an NBA-ready scorer, because he definitely is an NBA-ready scorer, but I think that a coaching staff's going to have to work with him to say, okay, you're not quite the best 3-point shooter yet. Let's, get you inside the arc a little bit more consistently. You've got a really good body. You can jump out of the gym. Let's get you going to the rim north and south a lot more. And then we'll work to add that 3-pointer in later. And that'll be something Edwards is going to have to accept early in his career. But here at 2, I don't really think it's slanderous to have a player second overall in his class. That's a really high ranking for a player. And he's going to be, an NBA ready scorer immediately. And that's valuable. And now pick 1, Deni Avdija. Not a lot of people have him as their number 1 player in their class. This is a consensus number 1 here from Austin and myself. He's got a lot of shooting potential in our opinion, a lot of playmaking potential, a lot of scoring potential, and even some defensive competitiveness. Austin, walk us through Avdija, kind of how you fell in love with him as a prospect and what you see him being at the NBA level.
Yeah, so I think the lazy comparison would be Luka Doncic. I think play style, he matches up pretty well with Luka Doncic. He's not going to have the step back threes. Obviously, he's not. I don't think he's going to be anywhere near the playmaker, but he definitely he's the second best playmaker in the class. But Luka Doncic is all world, all time great at playmaking. Deni's not going to have that same thing, so let's not expect that. But he definitely has scoring potential. Honestly, he didn't shoot that well from 3. However, we think that, with his form and everything, he is going to be a guy that is going to be able to shoot the 3 ball. What really made me fall in love with him was his feel for the game. He kind of controls the tempo of every game that he's a part of. He has floaters. He's got runners, kind of that same thing. He's got a lot in his bag. He can handle the ball very well for his size. He's 6'7", 6'8". I'm interested to see what his official measurements will be. But he's definitely a guy that's got obviously a lot of the tools, but right now he's got currently a lot in his bag that you can work with. Some of the prospects that we've had in the top 10 have had tools, but not a lot in their bag necessarily. But he's got a lot to his game. He's a true hooper. This guy is going to be, I believe he will be an all-star in his career, multi-time all-star. Whatever team gets him is going to be lucky, because I don't think it's going to be Minnesota. I think they're going to opt to pass on him.
Yeah, I think Avdija is going to be an interesting player to watch. I hope that whatever team he goes to does decide to put the ball in his hands early, kind of what we saw with the Mavericks with Luka. Obviously, there were some questions about how Luka was going to coexist with Dennis Smith Jr., and it's funny how quickly the Mavs realized that Dennis Smith Jr. is not going to be a long-term part of what we're doing here once we have a player like Luka Doncic. And Avdija, obviously, he's not going to be an MVP candidate player in his second year of the league. We're seeing, incredible things from Luka Doncic, and it would be unfair to expect Avdija to do some of the same things. But I think that All-NBA definitely is not out of the question. He's got a really high floor. He's going to be able to impact the game in a lot of ways, really good frame. And like you said, the feel for the game is there, and that's something I ultimately look for a lot when I'm addressing prospects and kind of seeing, okay, how do they really impact the NBA level? And we think that Avdija's got the highest floor, the best potential in the class, and a lot of the skill set you need to really impact winning at the next level. Thank you guys for watching up to this point. If you are new and haven't liked or subscribed yet, please do so. It really means a lot to us. Leave comments down below who your favorite player is in the class, who you want your favorite team to get. Let us know who your favorite team is, because we're all looking forward to seeing all that. We will be replying to the comments like usual. Thank you guys for watching, and have a nice day.